اليوم نستضيف ضيفة خاصة جدا، إلين مختفي، ناشطة أمريكية شاركت في النضال الجزائري من أجل الاستقلال. وخلال فترة وجودها هنا هي التقت بالعديد من الشخصيات البارزة، بما في ذلك أحمد بن بلة وهواري بومدين وفيديل كاسترو وفرانس فانون. ونشرت إلين مختفي مذكراتها قبل سنتين، وهي متوفرة بالسوق تحت عنوان Alger, capitale de la révolution de France Fanon أو Black Panther. إلين، أنا كان لي الشرف أن أنا أتعرف عليك شخصياً السنة الماضية خلال معرض الكتاب الدولي في الجزائر. احكي لنا، في سنة 1951 كان في عمرك 23 سنة وأنت سافرتي إلى فرنسا حتى تبحثي عن العمل في الترجمة بين اللغتين الفرنسية والإنجليزية. كيف تعرفتي على الحركة الجزائرية من أجل الاستقلال؟
It was in 1952 that I went to the May Day parade. The May Day parade in Paris is something enormous. It starts early in the morning and it goes on until the middle of the afternoon. And I watched the whole parade. I was so fascinated by the floats and the people and the enthusiasm and so on. At some point, the parade was winding down, and out of nowhere came thousands and thousands of men, 12 in a line with their arms splayed, no slogans, no banners. Where were they from and who were they? And finally, I learned that they were Algerian laborers, Algerian workers who had been denied participation in the Workers' Day Parade. And this was their means of expression, that they wanted a free Algeria and independence. And this was very a moving occasion for me. And I realized all of a sudden the role of a colonialist power, a colonial power. And I got caught up in the desire to do something.
أنت كرستي حياتك للحركة الجزائرية ضد الاستعمار. كيف كانت ردة فعل أهلك؟
I was an only child, and my parents were very supportive. They were very anything I chose to do, what my ideas were, they adopted them. And they were very pleased to get to know Algerians and to get to know foreigners in general. They were very supportive. I had no problems on that score. They were, I often came up from New York up to Ridgefield where they were living with Algerian who were in New York at the time, and it was always very pleasant and very welcoming.
في الخمسينات من القرن الماضي كنت بين باريس ونيويورك. كيف كان الموقف الأمريكي في ذلك الوقت فيما يخص الحرب في الجزائر؟
Our government, their support for France was both military and political. And in, I think it was 1958, John Kennedy made his famous speech in the Senate where he supported strongly, very strongly, the Algerian war, the Algerian side of the war, Algerian independence, and attacked strongly the Eisenhower administration for their support of the war. And that statement could have been written by an Algerian. It was so strong.
أنت كنت متقربة من فرانس فانون، وهو من أشهر المنظرين الثوريين في ذلك الزمن. كيف تعرفتي عليه؟
Didn't know Fanon. I met him in Africa, in Ghana. It was a very important meeting for me to meet someone of his stature, his intelligence, and his capacity for work and for support of the Algerian revolution. He was named by the GPRA, the Provisional Government of Algeria, as roving ambassador in Africa. That's when I met him. He had his office in Ghana, and I was there as in Ghana of having organized the Congress of the World Assembly of Youth. And he, Mohammed Sanoun, and I became friends, and we were very active in supporting Algerian independence at that meeting and other progressive resolutions in favor of decolonization in general.
وأنت كنت الوحيدة القريبة من فانون وعائلته حينما كان يحتضر ويعاني من سرطان الدم وهو في 36 من عمره عام 61 أليس كذلك؟
Been sent to the United States by the provisional government in the hope that there would be some solution to his health, his problems, and it was too late. He was examined by a number of specialists, and he was by then too far gone. And I visited him numerous times in the hospital. At the Algerian office, I was the only person who had known him. And so they kept they sent me down often to see that he had everything he needed, that he was comfortable and so on. And then his wife and child came, and the three of us visited him, and I took his son back to New York to get him out of the hospital. It wasn't a place for a child of 6 or 7 years old. And yes, it was a very sad time.
وبعد مغادرة نيويورك انتقلت إلى الجزائر حيث عملت في الحكومة الجزائرية. كيف وجدت البلاد في الأيام الأولى من الاستقلال؟
It was very exciting. We thought we were building a new world, that we were putting an end to racism and an end to colonialism and imperialism and so on. It was a wonderful time. It was very exciting. And there were all the liberation organizations were present in Algiers. All the anti-fascist organizations had representatives and offices set up in Algiers. It was a very exciting time. I guess we were rather innocent, but very happy to be part of the struggle.
وأنت كنت ربما الأمريكية الوحيدة في البلاد في ذلك الوقت. كيف تعامل معك الشعب الجزائري؟
Only American who worked for the Algerian government apparatus. That itself was something quite extraordinary. But I had made so many friends among the Algerians who came to New York and who participated in the UN delegations, and they came to lobby the UN for Algerian independence, that I was really welcomed. People opened their doors and their hearts to me. It was an amazing time.
في سنة 72 تزوجتي من الكاتب والمجاهد مختفي. كيف تعرفتما على بعض؟
I was with my friend Beja Ben Salem Traversac. We were leaving work at the Ministry of Information, and my little car, we drove up Rue de Douche, and there Beja saw Mokhtar, with whom she had worked early in independence about 10 years before. And she waved to him, and he came over to the car. He had a baguette in his hand. He'd just come out of a pastry shop, out of a bakery, up near the top of Rue de Douche, where it turns to the left. And he came, put his head through the window, and she introduced us, and she invited us all to dinner. And at the end of that particular week, we went to dinner at her house, met her husband, met her child, and who had just been born, actually. And yes, it all started there. It was a story of people who had the same desire to struggle for, to fight for justice, who were anti-racist and anti-imperialist, and so we had a lot in common, and we got along famously, and it lasted through our lives in France and then in New York, where he died.
وقبل سنتين نشرتي مذكراتك حول هذه الفترة، وهي متوفرة باللغة الإنجليزية تحت عنوان Algiers, Third World Capital, Freedom Fighters, Revolutionaries, Black Panthers، ومتوفرة في المكتبات في الجزائر باللغة الفرنسية تحت عنوان Alger, la capitale de la révolution, du Fanon au Black Panther. لماذا قررتي كتابة مذكراتك في هذا الوقت؟
Mokhtefi had always envisaged writing about his life in the Algerian Liberation Army. He was in the Signal Corps, Les Transmissions, and he felt it was his duty to write about the men he had trained with, who came back wounded or who didn't come back. He felt it was his responsibility. And but it took him a long time to get together the information and the need to sit down and take the time to write this memoir. And he encouraged me to, at the same time, to write mine. So he would sit in one room and I would sit in another room and at a desk, and at the end of the day we would read to each other what we had written or not, sometimes not written. And it was a kind of joint effort. We were both working at the same time. And when he finished his manuscript, it was really very close to the time that he died, and he knew he was condemned. He sent it off to Algeria, to Barzac, and just before he died, Selma Halal of Barzac informed us that she intended to publish his memoir.
وفي عام 2018 عدت للجزائر للمرة الأولى منذ 44 سنة. كيف وجدتي الجزائر؟
It wasn't the same country that I had seen, of course. I mean, when I was there were 9 or 10 million people. Now there are 40 to 50 million people. And it's transformed the country considerably. I could feel the difference. And also there were people everywhere and everyone was going about their business. It wasn't the same thing. It didn't visually and emotionally, it wasn't the same thing and until the Hirak. And then it seemed to me that some of the old spirit was back. And I actually went back to Algeria in 2019 and in 2020. And I was there in the month of February. I went several times in 2019 to walk in the Hirak. It was a very exciting time. I felt at home. I only wish that Mokhtefi had been able to see it. It was the kind of event he would have appreciated. It was people-powered and enthusiastic. It was inventive and had lots of good things about it. And he would have loved walking in that parade. Yes.
إلين مختفي، شكرا جزيلا على انضمامك إلينا اليوم. أنا متأكد أن الجزائريين والأمريكيين على حد سواء سيتشوقون للاستماع إلى قصتك. سأترك لك الكلمة الأخيرة.
I knew you were going to ask me this question. I'd like to just read a sentence from my book. And as I close the book, I seek out Algerians, young and old. They are people with a sense of the past, and I go back with them and remember, and I'm young again.